World news now. Iranian officials say they are approaching this weekend's talks with the United States over its nuclear program with little confidence in progress and deep suspicions over Washington's intentions. Donald Trump announced yesterday that the two sides had agreed to direct talks in Oman about the weapons for the first time in nearly a decade. Well, Tehran has pushed back early Tuesday, saying there would be indirect talks. Trump's unexpected announcement came a day after Iran dismissed direct negotiations on a new deal to curb the country's nuclear program, calling the idea pointless. Well, let's take a listen to what the Iranian foreign minister has been saying.
If the other side shows enough of the necessary goodwill, a deal can be reached. In the end, the ball is in America's court. If the other side comes to Amman with real determination, we will certainly get results. These negotiations will be conducted indirectly, and we will not accept any other form of negotiation.
Well, France 24's international affairs commentator Douglas Herbert is here to tell us more. Hey, Doug.
Good evening.
So Iran says it's open to indirect talks. It said that today, but it is saying it has its own conditions.
Yeah, absolutely. But first, this idea, Iran wants to be clear, and the foreign minister wrote an opinion piece for the Washington Post today in which he was very explicit. He says this rejection of direct talks that Donald Trump sort of, popped out of nowhere, direct talks or be bombed, essentially, is what Trump's message was. And this insistence on indirect negotiations to beginning. Foreign minister is saying this is not some tactic by Iran. This is not some reflection of ideology. This is a strategic choice rooted in our long experience around nuclear negotiations with the West and the United States. What he's essentially saying is Iran right now faces a wall of mistrust, as he put it, and harbors serious doubts about the sincerity of the U.S.'s intentions in these talks, right? We're used to hearing about, the mistrust towards Iran, Donald Trump basically saying you can't trust them, you have to follow. Iran feels the same way about the U.S. and the West based on the track record of what's happened to it in the past few years. Remember, it was Donald Trump who withdrew unilaterally back in 2017 during his first term from the 2015 nuclear deal, one that had been painstakingly negotiated during the Obama era. And it was imperfect. It was a flawed deal, absolutely. Most of the nuclear negotiators, those involved, admitted it at the time. But what they also said, a lot of observers across the political spectrum said that the first steps seemed to be working. Give it some time. So what Iran is basically saying right now is they want to get to the direct talks. It's not like they will not get there, but start with the indirect ones. And what they want to really get out of the way is this talk of this military option, let alone a military solution. There's a sense Netanyahu was sitting there alongside Trump when he announced that Netanyahu has been against any sort of deals with Iran. And while Trump says he prefers a diplomatic deal, Netanyahu's never had what he calls any illusions about Iran. He totally mistrusts them, urged the West never to accept the original deal. This is so Iran basically, it's this belligerence, as it perceives it, a belligerent attitude, an approach that assumes Iran is guilty before proven innocent, and that does not show any goodwill, any gestures of try to trust building. That's what it wants to get beyond. Hence the indirect. He pointed to, the Ukraine-Russia negotiations, which are being they're indirect talks mediated by the United States right now. So he's saying this is not a novel tactic. Indirect talks can often lead to diplomatic solutions, and that is what the hopes are in the Ukraine-Russia conflict. Why should it be any different? Why should there be this whole insistence that we go straight into direct talks, given that history of mistrust and bad blood? Prove first that there's goodwill on both sides. Prove U.S., prove West, that you can show some goodwill and some good gestures to us. This is not a one-way game.
Well, Doug, you mentioned the fact that Trump did withdraw from that 2015 nuclear deal. What does he want this time around?
What he wants is to go beyond it. Now, on the one hand, I was just saying that this was an Obama-era deal, which a lot of nuclear experts said, while imperfect, it seemed to be working. It put a lot of restrictions on Iran. It called for Iran to ship 97% of its fissile, that is, enriched material to build a potential nuclear weapon, out of the country for storage, to to start to, not abandon all of its equipment, some left behind, but to generally not build up any further its program, and to subject Iran under this deal to firm compliance, verification measures from the International Atomic Energy Agency. All of this, like I said, was a work in progress. It was not perfect, but it was the beginning of something right now. Now, with Donald Trump, you might say, well, he's fixing something that a lot of people say wasn't really broken. The deal was relatively new when he withdrew from it. He hadn't had that much time to get off the ground. And people say you should have given it a little bit more time. What Donald Trump is now asking for, and this is where Iran's going to draw the lines, is he wants to go beyond. He wants to outdo the Obama deal. He wants to build a new deal stronger than the Obama deal, right? What does that mean? He doesn't just want the nuclear program components in there. He also wants pledges in there that Iran is basically going to do away with its ballistic missile program. And also, and here is where it's really the interpretation, is in Iran's influence across the Mideast region, its use of these proxies, now severely weakened since the Gaza war, the Houthis in Yemen, Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Gaza, its former ally now toppled in Syria, Bashar al-Assad. But all of this influence network, it wants basically abolished and weakened. So Trump wants to go well beyond the parameters of this initial 2015 deal to impose on Iran a whole new way of doing business in the Mideast. And Iran is basically saying, well, excuse us, but we also are a proud nation. We have to look after our own interests, as you would too, America, in a similar situation. If we completely dismantle all of our programs, all of our defenses, all of our ballistic missiles, everything, and we just roll over and play dead, as they see it, and cry uncle, what if then there's an aggression towards us? What if then Israel decides to attack us? What do we do then? How do we defend ourselves? There has to be a bone for us in this game. There has to be some skin for us in this game as well. So they basically see right now these Trump demands, at least these very broad parameters, as being way too broad, and there's some red lines in there. They want to negotiate. They say they're ready for diplomacy, but they want it to be fair diplomacy, and they say they want it to be diplomacy based on mutual respect. And this belligerency, or the belligerent talk as Iran sees it from the West and from the U.S., mostly from Donald Trump, and this talk of perhaps militarizing the region, is just a no-go. And Iran has actually served warning to its regional neighbors around the Persian Gulf, places where there are U.S. bases. If they get involved in this Trump equation of a military buildup, they will be in the line of fire if anything escalates and flares out of control.
Doug, thank you so much for that piece of analysis.